Well, good evening, folks. Hey, it is Shooter Scott Henderson. We are going to go over swing trade notes. At the end of our presentation, please do review our disclosure. Let's jump right into this. Okay, a lot of news buzzing around. Apparently, Putin gave an order for their ballistic missiles to be made ready. I don't know exactly what that means. However, there's quite a little bit of chatter on that. And we also had BOJ went to 100%, I believe, on their risk model, which means they're cracking at the seams. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. Their only remedy is going to be to hike rates, at least from what I can see. And then we have some rumors that Powell is going to resign. Now, my thinking on that is either Monday or Tuesday morning. I would assume before he has some kind of meeting scheduled Tuesday. I would expect some kind of press release that clearly states he's not resigning. Historically, the Fed has always stepped in to silence rumors. So looking at earnings this week, I was mixed. Honestly, I wanted to delay publishing because I want to see what happens in the opening range tomorrow. Right now, Sunday night at 9:30, we're not really way off on futures, so nobody's really buying this news yet on Powell, but I think it's going to give us, 1.5 to a 5% drawdown if that's the case. So, right now, just because of how bullish everything looks, and it takes me sometimes weeks to, right now we are clearly at a crossroads to enter a new bull market. We break to new highs. We get some of this stuff with the tariffs resolved. And, everything else looks positive for us with the exception of housing week. Jobs are holding up. CPI data is light. I mean, there's absolutely no reason we can't catch a bid. EPS has been booming. We're growing. What is we 11 or 12% above last quarter? So everything is there. So I was hesitant to put in anything in swing trade notes as far as earnings. However, I have a keen eye on MDB, and part of the reason is because I've been using it with Sentinel. And I know that almost everybody else with AI is using that data because it works well with certain of the, the software or the apps that you use to connect everything. So I think it's got some decent growth coming in that might be a surprise. I also like Five Below. Also like Planet. I also like Broadcom on Thursday, DocuSign, and Lulu for a possible short. However, I'm probably going to stay extremely conservative. At this point, the game plan of, running a 3 to 5% gain has functionally been working, which, by the way, I didn't actually, if you're reading this, these were runners that cleared. So even though I didn't notice this until after I published it. But, my gain was only about $3 last week. So, the goal is 3 to 5% a week is, I'm being very conservative. I don't want to give back what I've already earned for the year. So that's my focus. So unless I have a lot of conviction, you're not going to see me take those trades, even though there's going to be a lot of setups I post that are very viable. So now the expected move snapshot, we really don't have any huge 10% expected moves. Crowd is 6.9 and 5 is 9.1. Those are probably the two that I'm most interested in for that reason. I'm going to let you guys review the remainder of the article in detail because it does give you a lot of good ammo going into the week. We also have an extensive short list this week, high conviction put. Notice Nvidia 66135 put, 52,000 open. That's the standout as far as me. And SMCI that's targeting that AI quantum leap that I suspect that we should get sooner with AI than we would expect otherwise. But let me jump right into who my victims are this week. Well, I like VIX cash secured puts here because I don't think we see that constant squeeze fade here. I might be wrong because if this rumor on Powell it turns out to be false and BOJ doesn't have an issue, or in other words, Bank of Japan doesn't start to crack, we really look bullish here. So I want to stay conservative. So I'm probably going to do like $50 cash secured puts and stick with that as a number. And I'm going to do 6 weeks out, just to earn some buck, pay the bills kind of thing. That's sort of my thinking. All right, now HIMS, I'm thinking we're done on our pullback. So right now trend support for me is at 50.76. Now I'm going to go back to position sizing and how I'm trying to coach and mentor on using trend support to add an exit. So here we don't want to have more than a 50% positions on until we have the confirmed breakout again above 6. Then we want a full-size position on chasing that 93. That's the game plan. So that's my thought. Let's take a look at a B. Now this has just been a trend hug, trend tree. And I've pushed out my target to 219 for a primary wave 3. And then we have a cycle wave 3 that should come in around 230. We're probably not going to hold past 219. The 225 strike is the only thing I'm interested in, or cash secured puts. You could sell like 170 cash secured puts, and they paid pretty decent here. I'm looking out towards August, my thought pattern. Now, IoT is a new name for me. I've not traded it to go too far out of the money, so I might just do right at the money calls here, and then have a game plan to add at trend support if that isn't where we launch, because we could put out this flag and then launch. So it could be a week or two out, but I still like the way the name looked. Also like the way this is pushed and broadened in the pattern. It's getting more volatile as it peaks out. So, worst case scenario, we get back to 54 bucks. So right now, that's my target of what I'm looking at as far with, and then the game plan to keep some runners on, maybe up towards that $70 is the game plan. Now, this is solely based on the news from China and rare earth minerals being restricted. There is rumor that the auto manufacturers will start having major problems with magnets, specifically in the EV sector. That will hit Tesla US, that will hit Rivian, that will hit NIO. However, I have no puts on those scheduled in here, which I probably should, but I didn't like the way the charts look because I'm not a news trader. I'm not going to my setups are totally based on the technicals. And if I get a news event that's a catalyst in one direction, either a headwind or a tailwind, obviously I'm going to use it to my advantage. But I want to think of that and how my trade setups are coming in. We've had a nice digestion mode from 50 bucks down here to roughly 1250. We've now had a decent back test. We're building out this new trend channel to the upside. Now, usually what happens is this is a shelf, and then we get a bounce, then we build out another shelf, then we get a bounce, build out another shelf. So the ultimate target is 50 bucks here, but I'm only going to be targeting 25. So I'm going to be looking at August $25 call is my thought pattern. All right. Now, ONDS is off of that drone concept coming from Washington. I couldn't find any other names I liked. This was the only one I could find positive news. I don't like small caps. I don't like shares under $10 because they tend to be a little too volatile. So, but this did have decent option flows. So the 150 calls were the heaviest out there. You could also turn around and just sell $1 cash. It doesn't pay a lot for the risk on the table. Me, I'm more inclined to do 250 calls, or I may just do common shares and then turn around, sell at the money calls just to pull some premium on it. It's also something that I've thought about doing on that. And then this is also based on the China news, where metals processing starts coming back to the U.S. That's the pop that we had in 2021 regarding that, because that was the thought, that Trump was going to bring this. This whole rally was the Trump rally, right? So I see no reason we can't get this again, especially if we start getting support from Washington. So, initial target for me is $7. So UUU is on the table as far as I'm concerned. And that's what we've got for this week, folks. Well, great trading. Until next time.